Robinson, who lived in the George Washington Carver. That's not right. Is that right? I think that's right. Public housing, and we stayed there. We got there a few days before the final attempt at the march. There were three starts to the march, and we missed the first two. We were there for the third and final one. So we were not there for the Bloody Sunday when they overran the bridge with the troops and beat the hell out of people. We were not there at that point. So by the time we got to, the march was pretty well organized, and it all went off fairly smoothly. We would go and march several hundred people down around the town square and stop at the courthouse and protest there, and they rounded us all up on a Friday night, and there were way more than they could even book, no less actually put in jail. So they took us to a big community center in a park and locked us up there. And it was Friday night. There were two rabbis in the group. We all sang and danced the hora and carried on, and it was more of a party than than what time in jail is usually like. But the march, it's 40 some miles from Montgomery to Selma to Montgomery, and so we marched 12, 15 named Mrs. Robinson, who lived in the George Washington Carver. That's not right. Is that right? I think that's right. Public housing, and we stayed there. We got there a few days before the final attempt at the march. There were three starts to the march, and we missed the first two. We were there for the third and final one. So we were not there for the Bloody Sunday when they overran the bridge with the troops and beat the hell out of people. We were not there at that point. So by the time we got to, the march was pretty well organized, and it all went off fairly smoothly. We would go and march several hundred people down around the town square and stop at the courthouse and protest there, and they rounded us all up on a Friday night, and there were way more than they could even book, no less actually put in jail. So they took us to a big community center in a park and locked us up there. And it was Friday night. There were two rabbis in the group. We all sang and danced the hora and carried on, and it was more of a party than what time in jail is usually like. But the march, it's 40 some miles from Montgomery to Selma to Montgomery, and so we marched 12, 15 miles a day, maybe. It's 3 or 4 days, I don't remember exactly. And at night we stopped at farmland that was owned by black farmers in the area, very courageous black farmers in the area, and they put up tents, but not many lights, and they had ordered members of the Alabama National Guard to come out and guard the tents in the campgrounds. But they all stood in a circle with their guns pointed in towards the tent. Until they got another order that said, no, you're watching for threats from outside. We don't think they're going to kill each other. But then there was a large section. We were walking down a few lanes of a 4-lane highway, and there were pickup trucks and cars and all along the whole distance, Confederate flags yelling unpleasant things that my mom wouldn't want to hear, and such. Um, Saying what they could say, doing what little they could do. At that point, they'd already done enough, but there was a long section where there was only one lane available, and so they cut the whole crowd down to 350 people from several thousand, and 300 of those were reserved for local people who were going to stay and live with the results afterwards. 25 were reserved for sort of high-profile people, like Dr. King and James Bevel and Hosea Williams and all these guys, Jesse Jackson, all these big-name guys. 25 for sort of celebrity folks, big-name leadership, and the other 25 were sort of drawn at random. No, not at random. You could apply to go, and there was a form you filled out: who you were, where you were from, who you represented, what you were doing. And so I filled one out. I was 21, senior in college. I was a religion major. I claimed that I was representing the Enid, Oklahoma Ministers Association. That part was fiction. They would not have endorsed anything I was doing. So, but that's all right. It got me in, and I got to be one of those 25 of the assorted folks, and it was just pretty fascinating. It was cold at night. It was hot during the days. Everybody had blisters and sore feet. There was a guy named Jim Leatherer who had one leg and did the whole 50 miles on crutches. God knows how he did that, but a courageous guy. We got to Montgomery late in the afternoon, and it was an enormous party, and they had all these celebrities out: Harry Belafonte and Eartha Kitt and Nina Simone, for God's sake, Nina Simone. And if you don't know Nina Simone, her trademark song is Mississippi Goddamn, and it's a good one. Leonard Bernstein was there. I mean, everybody was there. And so there's this enormous show. They put up a flatbed trailer. Peter, Paul, and Mary were there again. They were big names when I was there. And Mary was slender and flat-stomached, and they standing facing into the wind, and that dress is plastered up against Mary, and her hair is streaming out 15 or 20 feet behind her. And, oh my God. I was in love, but she didn't respond. So I got over it. But then the next morning we marched the balance of the way, 2 or 3 miles down to the Capitol, and Dr. King gave a speech. A couple other people gave speeches, and it all ended up just as it was starting to get sunset, and everything had been so orderly and well planned. Food and transportation and medical stuff and security, everything was going so well, but there really was not an exit plan. And so thousands of us down here in the street and on the sidewalks in front of the Capitol, and there's no fleet of buses that take us back to Selma, and around us is a whole perimeter of people who are watching us, but not as fans. And so my friend Bob and I, like a whole lot of other people, just started looking around for a car with a black driver, and we flagged him down, and he took us back to Selma.
Wow.
But that was the scary part. Really, the only really scary part of it was just getting out of Montgomery. And just one other comment or two. There was a woman from Detroit named Viola Viola Liucci, and her husband was a union organizer in Detroit, and she came down to support the march. And she didn't actually make the march because she volunteered for everything there was, and she was cooking and on the transportation committee and every other kind of thing. But she was on her way back from Montgomery to Selma with a black man who was also on the transportation committee and was shot and killed on the road, through the windows. And it was really troubling how many people blamed her, that she should have been home looking after her children. She came down here with all these niggers and should have been home looking after her children. They spread rumors about her having black men down here in Selma and all kind of stuff. They just savaged this poor woman who was already dead.
Sounds familiar.
Yep. Doesn't it? I don't think I'm ever going to believe that Sandra Bland hung herself, but I don't know. Maybe she did, but that's hard for me to believe. Anyway, it was a tremendous experience.